So this is the first one that I can't get the copper to adhere to reliably. So I've sanded off all of the copper except around the edges where it's holding well, doesn't need to be sanded off. Got down to pure pot metal. So what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to put it in SP cleaner, and then I'm going to put it in number 4 pickle, and I'm going to leave it a while. Whatever that is on the surface that's causing the problem, hopefully that pickle will take it off. So let's give it a try. Alright, so you remember that me plating this in nickel and how pretty it came out. So I put it in copy chrome, and it came out a grayish, hazy look. And if you read the Caswell instructions, it says if it does that, it's got too much peroxide in it. I don't know where the peroxide comes from, unless it's part of the chemicals that they send you. However, I buffed it, and it looks pretty good. But am I buffing copy chrome, or is I down into the nickel? I think it's copy chrome. It looks different than the nickel looked. So anyway, I don't know. I'm going to finish buffing this one out and see what happens. I'm learning one thing. They talk about surface preparation, and when you put the nickel on and you put the chrome on, you can see everything. I mean, yeah, it shines, but every little imperfection, all the sanding marks, everything shows up. So it shines, but I could see all the little pits that didn't fill totally, and I don't know. I'm gonna finish buffing this one out. I've got the other one in the pot in flash copper, the one that I keep getting the bubbling on, and I pulled it out a couple times and looked at it, and I believe to God it's gonna do the same thing. And it's got to be coming from that pot metal corrosion embedded into the pot metal, and it's not pits big enough for do anything with. I mean, it's just almost microscopic pits, and I don't know what you do. I've sandblasted the crap out of it. I've left it in pickle hoping it would eat it out, and so I'm getting ready to pull that one out and see how it looks out of the flash copper. This piece here, I just might go with it. I wish I knew enough about this to know whether I'm looking at copy chrome or whether I'm looking at nickel. Maybe the copper chrome didn't stick, but it's got a light gray hazy finish on it, and it does polish out, so we'll see. Okay, so I buffed it out, and as far as the plating goes, that looks as good as anything could look. Those little tiny pits that I couldn't get to fill, and there's one bad place here that I put muggy weld in that, and then when I sandblasted it, it sandblasted some of it out, so You know, I've got about 6 weeks in this part, trying this, trying that, and this is, I wasn't going to go back and fill it again. I am just tired. But if I could just get some thick copper on these things to where I could actually fill these little small pits and sand it down, I think I'd have this thing conquered. So I don't know. This has been in acid. This has been in flash and acid, I think, 4 or 5 times, and sanded between each coat, and maybe the pits filled up some, but not much. But this looks pretty good. I might need to buff it just a little bit more with my big buffing wheel. I got some places there that just need a little more buffing, I think, and it'll come out beautiful. I'm also sure that this is copy chrome that I'm working on and not nickel. I don't see any yellow tint to it, and it just looks different than the nickel. So I think it actually took copy chrome. I don't know why it turned that gray look, but it buffs out, so good there. Another thing I haven't mentioned, something I've discovered, is these little buffing wheels. Goes on my Dremel machine here. This one that's in here now is 120 grit, which is the most abrasive thing that I think they've got. I bought a kit of them on eBay. There are 5 different grits, 16 of each grit. Runs anywhere from 120 to 600. Here's the chart. Keep it up on the wall. And the gold ones are 120. The green is 180. The red is 320. The black is 400, and 600 grit is a grayish color. These things are lifesavers. You take, well, I don't have anything laying here right now, but just take this part. After you've plated it with copper, you can take that 120, saves you a lot of sanding, and it'll take it right down and, you know, leave whatever copper has collected in the pits. And then the number 600, the light gray, it really polishes it out. It's almost as good as a polishing wheel, and it really makes copper shine, gives it luster. So I'm using those, and this gold one here that I've got in here now, if you remember that second windshield washer base, wiper base, where the last time I tried to plate it, it got to the bubbles, and anyway, the copper was coming off of it, and rather than take it and sand it with a DA or sandblast it or both, I just took this 120 grit wheel and took it off just beautifully. So these little wheels are cheap, and they're sure time savers on small items. On big items, you're gonna, you know, it would be a little cumbersome, but I recommend them highly. They've worked great for me. You can buy them individually too. If you, I'm seem to be using mostly the 120s to do some really rough cutting, and the 600 for like buffing. And you can order them separately as the different grits separately, so I'm going to get me some 120s and some 600s. I'm not using the ones in between very much, so that's what I'm going to do. This is the one that I could not get copper to stick to. And when you take these things out of the bath and they're still wet, they all look beautiful. It's only after you dry them off and you hit them with the first sandpaper that those nodules or those bubbles or whatever you want to call them would show up. And this time I get none of that. Well, right down in here, doubt you can see it, but there, maybe you can see it right there. There's some little tiny ones, but I'm not even sure that that's bubbles. It may be just roughness that was there in the beginning. But I believe I have finally got copper to stick to this one, and the only thing I really did different, I put it in pickle number 4 and I left it for a much longer time than I normally would leave it, hoping it would eat off or eat out whatever was causing the copper to not stick and bubble up. And I've just hit it a little bit with number 600 sandpaper, and I'm not seeing any of that. So maybe I've got copper to stick to this. This has been through flash and one time of acid copper. So I'm going to sand this down, put it back in flash just in case I expose any pot metal, and go back into acid copper and put some more acid copper on it and sand it some more. The imperfections are still there. I wish I could, I've said it 100 times in these videos, but I wish I could get some thicker copper. The acid copper just doesn't seem to fill things like I think they ought to fill them. Maybe I'm expecting too much. I took this piece and buffed it with white buffing compound, and it did a pretty good job, but I can still see those sand scratches from number 600. And what I'm learning here is, until this thing is totally glossy and you cannot see any sand scratches or anything else, you're not going to get a perfect job. That looks pretty good, but if you put nickel and copy chrome on that, the sand scratches are going to be seen, and any little pits that you didn't fill up are going to be seen. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to wet sand this with 1200. That's what I've got. I didn't have any 1000. I'll do 1200 and then 2000 and see if I can get this sand scratches out. Then I'll probably buff it after that. And if I can do all of that and not sand down to the pot metal, I ought to be able to go directly into nickel with this. So we're going to give it a try.